So earlier last year, we visited Roush Performance out in Michigan and upgraded Smoke Show's cooling system with their new Phase 2 LTR, which has done a great job of keeping our temperatures down. I mean, you guys know that this car's been on road courses, we drift it, it's been on drag strips, and it's been a lot more repeatable since we did that installation. The temperatures have been down, and it's been nice and cool. But obviously right now, we're in the heat of summer right now. I mean, temperatures are 100 degrees in a lot of places. We do plan on traveling this car a lot. When Roush said they have an even better option, today we decided it's time to upgrade. So we're here with Josh, who's the Director of Aftermarket Parts for Roush Performance, and tell us about this kit, a max cooling kit, I believe.
Max cooling kit, yeah. So I mean, this kit is created for the guy who really wants to push our product to the limit.
Okay.
You know, so for most Roush owners, we're expecting that you want the warranty, you want our conservative and high quality engineering. You want to say you have 750 horsepower, 700 with our Phase 1, and take it to the car show, take it to the car repeat, do some highway pulls, do some light to light movement. And that's for the most part what we see from Roush owners. But with this kit, we wanted to make sure that the guy who's using a Roush product to go the next step.
Drag race, road race,
drift, everything that you would do with your car, that's who we're catering to with this.
Okay.
For the guy who's not just wanting to run once or dyno it once, but he wants to run it all day.
So everybody out there who's got their Phase 1, their Phase 2 already on their car with that upgraded LTR doesn't necessarily need this.
No, it's definitely not a necessity by any means. It is an optional upgrade.
But if you want that additional.
If you want it and you want it to be able to work and to be able to run, this is for you. Okay. For sure.
So what was the thought process behind this? And we all talked about positive displacement blowers and the heat they create.
Sure.
You guys obviously upgraded your LTR on the Phase 1 and Phase 2 to compensate for heat issues. On particularly the 18 up seems to have issues overall. But this is going to take that cooling how much beyond what the LTR even does?
It's pretty substantial. So, and not only are we managing cooling of the supercharger system, we're managing cooling of the engine, which is something that no one else is doing. And we're also managing heat displacement. So 3 big metrics here. So 1, you're getting 2 radiators. And those radiators are managing the supercharger system and the engine. The engine is getting a 30%, 28% increase in cooling capacity.
And that's 2 additional radiators on top of the one that's already going to stay.
Correct.
So basically you have 3 at this
Essentially
point.
you have 3. So it's the same fitment that comes on our Roush Stage 3 or Roush JRE. It's very similar to the system that was developed for the GT500.
Okay. Now as far as the installation goes, I mean obviously we took the front bumper off ours already. Is this an installation someone can do in the garage? Is this an amateur install? Is something you recommend? I mean, especially with warranty, because a lot of people who buy the Roush blower, that's their thought is, hey, I want my warranty.
Yeah, so the good thing is as long as it's installed properly, it doesn't affect your warranty at all. So for that reason, I do recommend using one of our Roush authorized dealers or speed shops to do that. However, if you're mechanically inclined, you could do this in your garage. The biggest thing, and you and I were joking before, is if you can pull off the fascia, you could probably do this.
That's one of the reasons I took it off already. If that part's intimidating, this install's not for you.
If you're looking at that front bumper saying, I'm not sure I want to touch it, take it to a dealer.
But if you want to try it yourself, let's show them how to do it.
Perfect. And we have 300 dealerships and speed shops across the nation. There's someone near you that can do the job.
Great. So here we are with all the components of the max cooling kit. Talk about what is included and what's going to go on here.
Yeah, so it's 4 different components that all complement different aspects. So you have 2 radiators. Each one of these are going to sit between these 2 new completely functional corner pockets. So this does require permanent modification of the fascia. So that's another criteria, is when you take on this kit, you got to make sure that you're ready.
Gotcha.
Right? It's not just a bolted on, I don't like it, let me take it off. Because once these go on, they're on.
Permanent.
They're on. Same thing with our fender extractors. So the radiator is going to complement, like I said, both the supercharger cooling and the engine cooling. You're getting 28% more cooling capacity from your engine. 22% from your supercharger system. Those are going to sit behind these, hit cool air going in. And then we also added from our Roush Stage 3 and our JRE, the functional high flow fender extractors. Those are going to reduce engine temperatures by 14%. So a substantial,
so more air in, more air out.
And you can see it in a wind tunnel. You can see it in a thermal study. Air's coming in, really hitting all 3 radiators, including the LTR. And then you just see hot air bleeding out of the corner pocket, or out of the fender extractors. And that's really just showing that it's working.
Now back to these, obviously if you have a Roush Mustang, you have the corner pockets already, the cosmetic ones. In our case of our smoke show, we have them as well. Are these direct replacements for those?
They're not fully direct replacements because you have to do more modifications. So they're gonna fit very similar, the same spots, but you do need to actually trim out more of the fascia to be able to allow that.
But if you have the corner pockets, these will take their place.
These will take their place.
And you don't have to worry about the modification you did to install those previously.
You do need to, because on the previous corner pockets, those are non-functional. So these being fully functional, these need a lot more air in.
Gotcha.
So you need to.
But the modifications you made to install the non-functional ones are okay.
They're okay.
They're not going to be any issue installing the functions.
They're not going to conflict this. You're just going to add on.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Now, as far as, like I said, this goes, what are you getting? I mean, we're talking about the 2 different coolers, obviously all the brackets. Any permanent modifications inside? Anything that has to be welded or anything that has to be like ground off, anything like that?
No, nothing on the inside. Your biggest change here is strictly cutting the fenders and cutting the fascia. Everything else is bolt on.
Great, let's get started with the install.
All right.
So I'm gonna let Josh here handle the installation. I'm just gonna support him. What's the first step in the process?
First thing, I mean, obviously you've already got the fascia, you've got a lot of stuff out of the way, so we're gonna drain the coolant, get the system clear, and then we're gonna get started.
And I should mention now, I said we pulled our fascia off already. A lot of the bracketry we have on this is custom, so we don't want to waste your time showing you how to take it off. We've got plenty of videos on how to remove the fascia. And again, if that's a bit too much for you, then this install is probably not for you.
Call your local dealership at that point.
But let's get the coolant out of this thing.
So the first thing we're gonna do is, because our petcock, our coolant drain is all the way back here, we're just gonna pull the tank and then drain it that way. So we are separating the pump from the tank right now, and that's gonna bleed our coolant. All right, so once you pop the drain there, you're gonna uncap both the engine coolant and the supplemental coolant reservoir, and that's gonna force all the air through and get all your coolant out. So to drop the tank entirely, you just separate it from the windshield wiper fluid bolt, and then you can drop the tank. All right, so there's one last hose here that goes obviously into the main system, and it's just a quick release clamp, so then you can just drop it and pull it all the way out. Got it. All right, so the last thing we're gonna do to get the rest out is drain the main radiator, and that's just a valve. You just twist it and pull it, and you're done. There it goes. It'll come. All right, so next thing is we're gonna start pulling some of the wiring out of the way. It's really simple. You don't actually have to detach the pin. You're just pulling the pin out, flipping it over, putting it on this side, and then trying to tuck up some of the wiring. Just gotta move it over, put it back in, and then we're gonna try to move some of these wires back if we can. That's it. All right, so next thing we're doing is we're gonna be actually taking the horn off. So we do need to get rid of this bracket, so we're gonna start there, but then we're gonna detach the horn. Make sure you hold on to all the nuts and bolts, but with this bracket's gonna be replaced later on. Perfect. All right, so, well, Bill's car is a bit of an odd bird. You're supposed to have 2 horns stacked on this bracket. Bill's only has 1, but after you unplug, you separate them both from the bracket, and then you're gonna be done, and then we're gonna get rid of this. All right, so while we're on the driver's side, we're gonna go ahead and just pull the side headlight bolt. We're not pulling the headlight entirely, just the bolt here. All right, so the passenger side, we have to do a little bit more, but we're gonna start with the front one here, okay? All right, so next step is we need to get to the wiring harnesses that are behind the fender liner on the passenger side, so we're gonna pull all the clips. So you have 2 back here, 1, 2, a 5th, and then obviously once the fascia is off, we'll already have the front ones pulled. All right, so we're back on the driver's side. We've already pulled the fender, and now it's time to mess with the harnesses. So the first thing to do is we're gonna pull this because we're actually gonna be relocating it. That's it. All right, so all we've done is we're gonna move this harness over. So we're just putting a J-clip on here, and then we're just gonna make a punch, and then we're gonna drill. That's it. And we're gonna drill a 1/4 inch hole here, right onto our punch. And we're gonna insert our J-clip. Perfect. All right, so we're back on the passenger side. We're moving the outside headlight mounting bolt. All right, so next thing we're gonna do is assemble both the new radiators. We've got the smaller one first, then we're gonna work on the larger one. Okay, so each radiator is gonna receive 3 different brackets that hold it all, and then you're gonna use grommets to mount it. So you've got 2 of these curved brackets, one for the top, one for the bottom, and then a vertical bracket to mount them. These just bolt and nut, and you're gonna keep that pretty loose, more so just finger tight until we do final assembly on the vehicle. And then we're gonna slide the brackets on the arms here and put it together. All right, so you're gonna install each grommet into the holes for the mounting brackets, the mounting arms, and then you're just gonna slide them onto the radiator. And that's done. All right, so the other radiator, very similar, slightly larger top bracket here, vertical bracket, and then bottom, 1 nut holding them together. And you're just gonna leave that finger tight as well, and then same thing, grommets and assemble. All right, and that's done. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is continue the assembly of the larger radiator is actually install the horns with a new horn bracket. Now, if you had a normal GT, you'd have 2, but with Bill's car, we've just got 1, so we're gonna use it here. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're adding just single foam strip right here on the washer fluid bottle. It's gonna be like an insulating foam. Okay, so now we're gonna mount the passenger side radiator. So we're mounting it on 2 points. We're mounting it where the headlight bolt is on the outside as well as the front. So lining it there.
Just get that in. So you were using our factory bolt on the outside, and you said we're using the Roush hardware here, correct?
Yeah, on the inside we're using the new Roush headlight bolt. All right, so to protect our windshield wiper fluid sensor, we're actually gonna put a piece of foam directly on the back of the radiator, and just that's gonna protect it just in case we have movement here. All right, so before we can install the driver's side cooler, we're gonna need to actually tuck up this harness. So we're gonna go ahead and separate this plastic piece entirely and then try to tuck it up into the body up here. So we're gonna test fit it up into place, and we're just gonna put in the outer body headlight plug or headlight bolt just to kind of get it some structure.
Okay, there we go. So like that.
Yep, perfect. All right, so we're mounting it to the frame here. So we're just washer and a single nut, and then we'll tighten that down, and that secures it at the angle we need to the frame. And that's our extra support as well. Yeah, so the hole we drilled earlier is now gonna be for our horn bracket support. So we're just gonna put the single bolt through the J-clip, and we're done there. All right, so make sure you've recovered your headlight harness, and then we're simply just gonna plug our horn back in here. And we're good. And normally on a normal car, you'd have a second horn up here. Obviously, you'd plug in that as well. All right, so now that we've got it fully mounted, we're just gonna snug everything up. So bolt 1 and 3. Okay, so what we're gonna do, so we need to actually make some trims to the radiator hosing. So we're gonna pull the intake and pull the supplemental bottle just to get the hose out. Okay, so we have 4 different points that we've got to disconnect because we've already disconnected 2. So we have these 2 and these 2, and they're just quick connect clips. There we go. Got it? There we go. All right, now we're going up and out with it. All right, so we're on the driver's side. We're starting with the radiator hose here. So we're gonna feed it through the frame and up. So we're gonna attach the lower radiator hose now. You're gonna go underneath the main radiator hose here and directly in, and it's just a quick connect. And that's it. All right, so we're gonna actually cut this down because we've got new hoses. So we're gonna line it up here, kind of like to the edge of this tape line, and then we're gonna cut it off. All right, so from the piece that we've cut off, we actually still need the fitting. So we're just gonna cut this down and then separate the fitting. quick fit fitting that we just took off, we're now gonna install on the new hoses that we included in the kit, and then we're gonna be bonding that with what we just cut off, which is one of these thermal couplers. So the trick is you get it all set up, and you heat this up, and it shrinks down and creates your seal. All right, so you take the cardboard center out of here first, and then you're gonna make everything happen. So you're gonna connect this there, you're gonna push this into the fitting. And once it's in there, you'll bring it back up. And then we're gonna heat this point up, and that's gonna be our seal. Okay, and now we're gonna heat this up, and it's gonna shrink the fitting. All right, so after you've hit it with the heat gun or your torch to everyone, you wanna make sure you can see all the contours of the fitting, and that's how you're gonna make sure you have a nice seal. Okay, so now we need to reconnect our hosing system here. So we're using just another power grip, and we're gonna, where we cut before to our new hose, we're just gonna cinch them together. Okay, so now we need to reroute our hosing. So the first thing we're gonna do is go over to the passenger side with the hose. Perfect. All right. And then once we've routed it through, we're connecting to the top port of the radiator. Okay, so now we're gonna make the connection. We're back on the driver's side, so we're connecting the top port, and then we're gonna route this line through underneath the oil cooler lines, and then we're gonna pull it up later. Connected. All right, so the next thing we gotta do is we gotta disconnect the upper radiator hose here, and then we're gonna bring it around because we actually have to cut it and install some T-fittings. So we're gonna go ahead and take the heat wrap off the line because we gotta make 2 cuts. All right, so on the straightest portion of the radiator hose, you're gonna take this T-fitting, and we're gonna make 2 cuts. So we're gonna use this as a guide, and we're gonna score it, and then we're gonna make our cuts there. We're definitely gonna cut on the inside so that we have the extra hose just in case we need to cut again. So now we're gonna make our cuts. We've scored it on the inside, and we're gonna make our cuts here. So for this upper radiator hose, make sure you disconnect it from both sides. So once you've made your cut and you've installed your T-fitting, make sure you orient the hoses as we have here. This one's more level, this one's more turned up, and then you put your power grips on either end, and you're gonna shrink it down. Okay, so I went ahead and throw the clamp back on, and we're ready to route it and reconnect everything. Send that through. All right, that ends in, and you push this in until you hear it clink, and reclamp this end. Okay, so now we've got to do the lower radiator hose, so we're going to disconnect it from here and from the other end and pull it out and make our cuts. Same function as before, unclamp it, make 2 cuts, reinstall. Okay, so now we're on the lower end of it. So we're gonna disconnect this clamp here, and then we have 2 more underneath. All right, so these are the oil cooler lines. So they both have quick connects. We need to disconnect both, and then we can pull that hose out and make our cuts. All right, so our last T-fitting is gonna go right here in the upper portion of the hose. We're gonna do the same thing as before. We're gonna score it, we're gonna cut it, install, and heat grip. All right, so once you have everything reinstalled, this out should be oriented. This stays the same, but once we've installed this new T-fitting, you should have a slight offset there, and then your grips. So this is the upper, and this is the lower. Reconnecting our oil cooler lines. You can bring it.
All right, back over here on the driver's side cooler, we're gonna attach this now to the bracket for the pump. Now, if you did pull this bracket off to remove your tank earlier, just put it back in place like it was from the factory, and then the bracket here connects right to the bottom. And now finally, our final hose connection, Roush supplied hose, goes from our intercooler pump to the cooler right here. Then you're going to reuse the factory clamp that we took off the tank earlier. Now we're ready to modify our front bumper covers. So what we're have to do is basically make this look like this. So there's a couple modifications that have to be made here. Now in our case, we had Roush corner pockets already, so we have the 3 slots drilled here, but if you don't, the instructions at the very end include templates for cutting these slots. What we have to do now though is use the Roush provided template, and this is gonna basically be cut down like this, and this whole thing gets removed so more air can pass through. And basically we're gonna be drilling mounting holes over here, and they'll be taped through here to hold this in place. Basically what you're doing though is removing as much plastic as possible to get air through to that cooler. We're just going to test fit it. Basically get an idea here that you cut out everything properly. Vent should be open from behind. All right, now we can mount it. We're going to put this applied double stick tape down across the bottom section here. This is the retaining hardware included by Roush. So the round one's gonna go on the round stud, and this style will go on the slot. And it's a speed nut, so just put it over, force it down into place. And the little studs here go on the back of the slots in the back. Now you can pull that tab off of your tape. Press it down to the bumper. Then Roush includes this piece of foam. This is going to stick across the top here. So it'll go between your marker fog light and our scoop here. So now we're gonna mount the marker light, fog light assembly. Now, when we cut out everything for those vents, we cut out the lower mount for this. Roush includes a solution with a metal pencil bracket, but to use that, this hole just has to be opened up slightly to 1/4 inch. Put the light back into place here. Install the original hardware for the top two. So this pencil bracket is going to mount below the light. Then these bottom two pieces are actually going to attach to 2 studs on the bottom of the coolers. All right, we're ready to put our bumper cover now back up into place. Let's get it on the alignment tab. Just put 2 screws in to hold it for now. All right, so we're gonna reach back here first, plug in our marker light. And what you gotta do is get the fender up into place and get these 2 pencil tabs on the lower intercooler. Don't tighten them yet, just get them hand tight. And now just install the nuts between the fender and the bumper, just again to get everything in place. All right, the bumper back in place. Now we can actually start making all the connections up here in the engine bay to our hoses. Now we're gonna take this hose here. This one's coming from the driver's side cooler. This goes to the engine to the lower. And then this hose here, this one comes from the passenger side. This is gonna connect to the tank and then to the upper right here. And connect to the bottom of the tank. Double check everything's clear, nothing's near any belts or anything like that. Okay, and you're ready to fill the system. All right, now we're gonna fill up the coolant system. So one of the last steps in the process here is to reinstall our splash shields. Now, if you remember earlier, I drilled a whole bunch of holes using the template supplied here. This is so air can actually pass through that radiator and go out in the wheel well area. It allows the air to pass through and not get tangled up. It also puts some more air into the brakes, so it's kind of a win-win. So at this point, reinstall the belly pan, put your wheels and tires back on, and your installation is finished. Now, this Roush Max cooling upgrade, it is definitely some work to do. This is not a do it after work, couple hours a night. You want to give yourself definitely, I would say, a weekend to do this installation. But if you're going to push your car and have the Roush Supercharger, it is definitely a worthwhile upgrade. It's going to keep these IATs down, especially if you road race, drag race, especially if you're drifting, anything that really pushes the car. It's gonna be a great idea to keep the car cooler. And not only adding more cooling for the blower, you're adding more cooling for the engine. So again, it's a win-win. But again, I'd say give yourself the better part of a weekend. You need a good set of tools, but you'll be back on the road in no time.